And we're now live. Hi, everybody. I'm going to start the record. Oh, it is recording automatically. My name is Brock Rosenblum. I'm actually going to hold off on all that good stuff for just another minute or so. We have a ton of people who registered for this. We'll start just 5 o'clock, few seconds after. There is a poll if there's some questions. If you could answer, and where are the rest of my questions? Are you a high school student? Oh, start polling. There we go. Now I've got both questions going. Couple of questions for the people in the chat in the room already. If you could just answer, who are you? Are you a high school student, a parent? Are you? I know there are a lot of professionals, independent consultants, school counselors, some teachers have registered for this. Let us know, and then if you are a student or a parent, what graduation year. And okay, there's 9 people in the room. Let's get started. Oh, also in chat, if you go to the chat, and just if you want, say your name and where you're from, who you are, if there's anything you want to know. This is pretty much Professor Lewis is going to be Professor Newman. Lewis is going to be just making this presentation. And then there'll be plenty of time at the end for Q&A. And if you have questions on, during it, you can type those in. But we do love knowing who is on this webinar. My name is Brock Rosenblum. I am the founder and creator of EssayQuest. I've been mentoring high school students with college essays since 2009, and this has been my entire life since 2012. Both one-on-one programs and programs that schools, nonprofits, businesses, independent educational consultants use to streamline their essay process. And my philosophy is life, if not always, but if you let it, can be an adventure. And going to college can be an adventure. And writing essays and applying to college can be an adventure. And what I love about adventures is that sometimes they're hard. Sometimes you kind of trip and skin your knee. But you learn and you grow, and like life gets bigger, and you can get bigger and expand your experience of life. And when I met Lewis Newman in September at a conference in Los Angeles, NACAC for the professionals here, immediately was like, oh, he's one of my people. Very, very similar philosophy on what life can be, and certainly college. So I'm so excited to be able to host this webinar. Professor Newman spent, tell me if I get this right, 33 years as a professor at Carleton College. It's a fabulous small liberal arts college in Minnesota. 6 years at Stanford as the Dean of Academic Advising. And in our many conversations, I've realized and discovered that he has such a different perspective on what college can be and how to think about college than anything I've heard or read over all these years, because he's coming from that side of being a professor and working with students in that way. So again, very excited to have Professor Newman. Lewis, sorry for that.
Thank you.
Lewis, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to him. This is a new platform that we're using. So there may be times when we're like, wait, what happened? What's going on there? So be patient with that. Again, please let us know who you are and type any questions that you have in the chat. And with that, Lewis.
Okay, let me just see. Whoops. Am I in the right place? Is this working? Hold on. Is everyone able to see my slides? Barak, can you confirm that?
Yes, those are working.
Excellent. All right. Thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure to have this opportunity to talk with you this evening. I want to provide a bit of a new perspective, perhaps, on how to think about college and how to think about applying to college. And in particular, how to think about evaluating the choices that you have, because it's a very confusing and overwhelming process for a lot of people for good reason. And I'm hoping to, by the end of this, you'll have a little bit more clarity about what an insider to higher education for his whole career has to say about really the things that matter and the things that don't, truthfully, about college as you're evaluating your choices. So let's start here. for all the parents here, and even for others, right? This decision about college is surely among the most expensive decisions you'll make. So my question to you is really, what are you buying for all that money? Right? What is it that you're really getting for the enormous sum that you're going to spend? Even if you're on financial aid, you'll be spending an enormous amount of money on your child's college. So my guess is that if you're like most people, you probably think about this very much like other large purchases. If you're buying a car or a house or a boat or something else that is a very substantial commodity that you're buying. And my first and maybe the most important point of the evening is this: you are actually not buying a commodity. It may feel like you are, it may sound like you are, but in fact, what you're buying is a set of relationships and experiences that your child will have and that will transform their lives potentially and affect the course of their lives for decades to come. And if you focus on that, on the experiences, right, that they will have, and the relationships that will form them, that is really what college is about. It is not a commodity, and that has, among many implications, the fact that you can't just like turn to Consumer Reports or the U.S. News and World Report rankings, which I guess would be the equivalent, to find out what's the best buy, what's the best purchase here. It doesn't work that way. And I'll have more to say about that as we go. So let's step back a bit and start with, what is college for? This may seem like a very elementary question. It seems sort of obvious, like what is college for? Well, if you're like most people, the immediate response is it's to prepare for a career. You get a college degree because it opens a whole range of career paths that would otherwise not be available. And of course, that's true. It's also true that the careers that you get with a college degree continue to pay off enormously over the course of one's life. The statistics I've seen suggest that the average college grad earns over the course of their life $1 million more than a non-college grad. Right? That's an enormous difference. So your money is going to actually ultimately there's going to be a return on that investment. But there's more, right? There's the networking that comes from college. As the old cliche goes, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And in fact, in college, you will meet people who will actually change your life and open doors for you and make you aware of opportunities that you would not have known about. College is a time, and I know this from my own experience as a faculty member, a time of enormous expansion of one's horizons. Students develop new interests. They see the world in new ways. They have opportunities to sort of just literally see the world, travel, and in general, come out of college with a much broader, much richer sense of the world than they had when they went in. Along with that goes developing a sense of purpose. There are many people actually who've studied this, including some people in the School of Education at Stanford, where, as Barack said, I worked for a number of years. The sense of purpose, the sense of who am I in the world? What is it that I want to be doing with my life? How am I going to contribute? These are all key questions that college students think about and develop over the course of their 4 years in college. And this one I emphasize in particular as an academic, as a professional scholar and teacher. One of the key things that college is for is becoming an expert learner and a rigorous thinker. There are other ways to do this, but college is uniquely situated to help students think more rigorously, learn more intensively, and come out of school really with the kind of skills that employers say they want. Many, many surveys have been done of CEOs of Fortune 500 companies and others. Top on their list of things they look for in college grads are grads who can think clearly, who can express themselves clearly, and who can solve problems. It's what our society needs. I think we're all well aware that the internet and social media and their expansion have meant that we are awash in disinformation and conspiracy theories. We want students to come out of college able to discern the difference between real garbage information and real solid and factual information. And that requires being a rigorous thinker. And finally, I would argue it is the most enduring and transferable benefit. Again, studies have shown that most of what we learn in college, we probably forget unless we're using it in an ongoing way. But the thing that we don't forget, no matter what, is how to think clearly, how to analyze problems, how to attack a new problem that you don't have a textbook to tell you how to deal with. You have to figure it out. That's an enduring benefit. And in the way that college shapes your mind, you have the opportunity to gain that skill. So what are some of the differences that matter? And I'm going to run through these quickly because I suspect these are things that most of you are aware of. I worked at a small 2,000 student undergraduate college, Carleton College in Minnesota. I worked at a large research institution at Stanford here in California. It's a big difference. The experience that a student has on a very large campus and a very small campus is just a different quality of community. There's a research versus teaching focus. Carleton is a very teaching-focused institution. Stanford, of course, is a very research-focused institution. Both have benefits. They are different. And the kind of experience that you get as a student is quite different in those two settings. Location. I like to say to students, you're not just choosing a college, you're actually choosing a place to live for 4 years. Carleton College is located 35 miles south of Minneapolis in the midst of a lot of cornfields in the farmlands of southern Minnesota. It's lovely. It's very rural. It's quite different from going to school in Manhattan or Chicago or LA or even in, suburban, if you will, suburban San Francisco, which is to say Palo Alto, where Stanford is located. There are, of course, specific requirements that vary by school, and they're worth paying attention to. In particular, things like foreign language requirements that are different in different places. There are unique opportunities that you have in different schools. If you're an athlete or you have a particular cultural or religious background, it's clearly important to have that available to you. Obviously, financial aid is a consideration. And I add now, as I do these presentations, political considerations, because you may want to go to school or may not want to go to school in a state where, for example, the state legislature is involved in dictating to the universities, public universities in that state, what they can and can't teach and perhaps how they should do it. So these are all considerations. Here are some of the things to ignore. And this is a rather important list because, in fact, my experience suggests that most people pay a lot of attention, undue attention to these things. And the first is the quality of the campus tour. If you go to visit a campus, it's very hard not to be swayed by a really, really dynamic, enthusiastic campus tour guide who makes you feel welcome and warm and gives you a sense of what the school is like, and you just get drawn in, right? That doesn't tell you a thing about the quality of the institution or the education you're going to get. You just got lucky and got a really good guide. Right? By contrast, you can get a really lousy guide, as I can tell you my older son did years ago when he was going to college and walked away from the tour going, I am not coming here. Right? But of course, that too was not indicative of really what the quality of the institution was. There's the glitziness of the college's PR materials. I can tell you that colleges these days spend a great deal of time and money putting together their materials, and you've probably been getting these or will be getting them, or you'll see them on websites. This is all advertising, folks. That's all it is. And I guarantee you that all those beautiful pictures of the campus are only taken on the most spectacular, pristine days of the year. They don't take them in the middle of thunderstorms or snowstorms. Right? So keep in mind, it doesn't always look the way it looks on the brochure. The class or two you visit, this one is actually often takes people by surprise because, in fact, you go to a campus, you think, oh, I'm going to really learn what the educational experience is here by visiting a class. So let me just tell you, as a faculty member, I was in that situation of having prospective students visit my classes on those days when they were coming to class, coming to school to check out the campus. On any given day, on any given class, it may go well, it may not be such a great class session. That one experience doesn't even tell you much about my course. It surely doesn't tell you much about all my colleagues' courses across hundreds and hundreds of faculty and departments, right? So all that to say, you tend to generalize quickly from the experience that you have, positive or negative, in one or two class visits. It isn't generalizable, and it's a mistake to put too much weight on it. Quality of the food, I say that partly tongue in cheek, but I will tell you that on virtually every campus tour, you will have somebody raise their hand and say, tell us about the quality of the food. or if the tour guide hasn't already mentioned it. Right? And I'm here to tell you, I have never met a college graduate in my 40 now plus years of working on college campuses. I have never met anybody who went back and said, you know what, I had a fantastic college experience. The food was awesome. Right? This is not what you're paying all that money for. So ignore it. Whatever the food is, it's not going to be spectacular. It's institutional food, and there'll be plenty of it, and it's likely to be relatively healthy. And especially, of course, the US News and World Report rankings. And the reason for that is exactly what I said earlier. If you were buying a commodity, it would make some sense to say, okay, what are the metrics for the best commodity in this class? And then you would rank them, right? But as I said, you're not buying a commodity, you're buying a set of relationships. So imagine this. Imagine I came to you and said, you know what? I know you're in the market, you're dating, you're in the market to find a life partner. Let me give you a list of the 10 top people in the country in rank order that you should consider. Obviously, you would think that was preposterous, because how could I give you such a list? How do I know what you're looking for? How do I know what the right fit is for you? How would I possibly know, whether you want a person who's introverted or extroverted or any number of 100 other things, right? You can't know that, right, from a set of listings, right? And that's exactly why the US News and World Report rankings are essentially worthless. They tell you really nothing about the things that matter most. So here's one other just quick point, because I know that a lot of prospective college students think about this. I think I'm going to major in X, so let me go to a school with a strong program in that, right? So let me begin by saying that majors don't usually determine career paths. And if you want evidence of that, I just encourage you to go to a room, any room of 6, 8, 10 adults who've been to college, and ask them whether their current profession is directly related to the thing they majored in college. Overwhelmingly, I will tell you, I've done this many times, it is not. Right? So don't assume that your major is going to lead you necessarily to a career. Some might, many don't. At least 44% of college students actually change their major at least once, according to recent studies. And some percentage change their major 2 or more times. Right? So you think you know what you want. You imagine you know what your major is going to be, but you might well change it. There's a good chance you will. And that's because you'll encounter new subjects that will excite you. And all of a sudden you'll realize, hey, there's a whole new world out there I never knew about. I'm excited about that. I want to major in that instead, right? Which is great. That's exactly what we hope will happen, right? That's, again, another reason why you don't want to choose based on major. Now, here's the exception. If a student's commitment is extremely solid, I'm thinking of somebody who has maybe, let's take robotics as an example. They've been doing robotics since they were in middle school. They've been doing it for 6 or 8 years. They've won awards in it. They've gone to competitions. This is their passion and their path, and they're clear about it. They're an artist, a musician, whatever it might be. They've been doing this for years. This is actually so deeply ingrained in them. It's clear that that's their life path. Great. Go to a school that is going to give you the best program in that thing, right? But those are the exceptions in my experience, right? There are not many students who are that clear in that deep and committed a way about what they want to do with their lives. And I say to people all the time, really the best major to choose is the one that you're going to be most excited about. And that's because if you're excited about studying it, you're likely to do well in it. If you do well in it, you'll have a good GPA. If you have a good GPA, you're going to be an attractive employee someday when you go out on the job market. Right? So all of these things mean that you want to pick something to study that really intellectually excites you. And you get excited just doing the homework gets you excited. That's the major you want. So here are some of the things that people mostly don't know about. This is why I call it do your homework. These are the things that in my mind, from my experience, actually tell you something meaningful about the kind of experience and the kind of relationships you're likely to have in college. And again, that's what you're going for ultimately. Right? Number one is something called the National Survey of Student Engagement. People in the field call it the NSSE survey. It's been conducted for 50 plus years. It's been given over in the aggregate to millions, literally millions of college students. It asks a slew of questions about their experience, their academic experience, their social experience, what the climate on campus is like around racial issues and around, you name it, every imaginable kind of thing that you would want to know, their extracurricular activities, all of it is included in this survey. Here's the hitch. You can go online and you can find the aggregated national results for the hundreds of thousands of students who take the survey every year. You cannot find school-specific results unless the school willingly shares them. So some schools do. I was just talking with somebody about this in another presentation. They said that, for example, Earlham College posts their survey, their NESI survey results on their website. Most schools don't, but that doesn't mean that you can't ask for them. And if I were in your position looking at colleges, I would be asking the admissions people if they would release the most recent NESI survey results from their school. Similarly, there are faculty surveys conducted by what's called the HARI, the Higher Education Research Institute out of UCLA. This is a very important survey that's been conducted many times over the years. I took it over the course of my career a number of times. It asks faculty a slew of questions about how well supported they feel in their research, in their teaching, in what their collegial relationships are like, and so on and so forth. If you're spending all this money to send your child to college, you want to be sending them to a place where the faculty who are teaching them are happy and want to be there and haven't been, at odds with or at war with their own administration or thinking about leaving because they're so dissatisfied. These are the things you would know if you knew the results of their HARI survey. Once again, unfortunately, these are not results that are publicly available school by school. But again, in your position, I would be asking the admissions folks, hey, have your faculty taken the HARI survey recently? And if they did, could you release the results to us? Another interesting test called the Collegiate Learning Assessment. I won't spend a lot of time on this. This is a test that was developed a number of years ago. It has been given to groups of students at institutions. It purports to test the growth in critical thinking skills that students develop between the point at which they enter and the end of their second year. A whole book called Academically Adrift was written about the test and its results, which were not, by the way, very encouraging for most schools. That said, it's not always given these days, but you could ask whether students have taken the CLA, and if so, what kinds of test results they got. Every school surveys their alumni. They survey their alumni because they want to know, what do their alumni think about the education they received? What are the things they treasure? What are the things that they wish had been different? Right? These are not standardized across the country. Of course, every school does this separately. But I would say that if you're looking at schools, you might want to ask, what do the alumni have to say about the school? Right? And not just, randomly ask a few people who went there, but actually, survey results of hundreds or thousands of alumni and what they've said about their educational experience at the school. That will tell you something meaningful about how committed they were to the school, how involved they were in the school, what they really valued, and so forth. Right? And by the way, rates of donation are another metric that is interesting. Not the amount that people give, right? But actually the rate at which alumni give in their annual campaigns. Right? That tells you something about how committed the alumni are to the institution. Learning and teaching centers. I had the privilege of running the Learning and Teaching Center at Carleton for 3 years. This is common now at many, many colleges and universities. This is a center that has programs where faculty can learn from one another, become better teachers, learn how to put together a better course, and so on and so forth. Right? Learning and teaching centers can be hubs of activity and growth for faculty. If an institution has a robust learning and teaching center and faculty are using it regularly, it tells you something about the culture of that place. And it tells you in particular that the institution has really invested in helping faculty become better at teaching. And you want faculty who are invested in teaching your children. The academic advising program. Again, I ran the academic advising program both at Carleton and at Stanford. Academic advising is a very appreciated dimension of the college experience. Virtually every student at some point or other in the course of 4 years is going to need some good advice. How good is that advice? How good are the advisors? How many students are assigned to each advisor? Are students required to meet with their advisor before they can register, or is it optional? These are all differences. Every institution runs its advising program a little differently. Are they faculty? Are they professional staff? All of these are questions you would want to get answers to. You'd want to understand something about how satisfied students are with the advising that they're getting. And these are lastly, other things that we call high impact practices. Studies have been done that demonstrate that certain kinds of educational experiences have an outsized impact on the education of students. First year seminar programs, civic engagement opportunities, that is to say, courses that students take that include some work with a community partner as part of the, as part of the requirement for the course. Off-campus study is another. These are demonstrably very significant educational experiences for students. If an institution has invested in a robust program of off-campus study and first-year seminars, it tells you they're paying attention to the things that have been demonstrated to matter most to the education of their students. Here are just a series of other questions and considerations. I'm not going to try to run through all of them, but I will just underscore a couple. Writing requirements, right? Writing is one of the key skills that people need, no matter what field they go into, right? You need to be able to communicate in writing effectively, right? How much writing is the student going to be asked to do in their courses, right? So that's a question you want to be aware of. Health services. Right? It's a pretty good bet that sometime in the 4 years that you're in college, you're going to get sick, or you're going to get into a bicycle accident or something else. And you're going to want to know, how close is the nearest hospital? How easy is it to get an appointment with the health services on campus? And especially, of course, the counseling center. So all of these are really, really important things to pay attention to. Last one on this list, I'll just do quickly. It's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek again, but I would say when you're walking around a campus, if you're on a campus tour, just stand in some well-trafficked place for a few minutes, pull out a map of the campus and kind of look around and look lost, pretend to be lost. Often it's not hard to pretend. It's pretty easy to get lost on many college campuses, but pretend to be lost and just wait and see how long it is before somebody, random stranger, walks up to you and says, hey, can I help you find something? Right? That's not a scientific survey, right? It could be very different on one day than it is on the next, but it tells you something about how friendly people are, how much they're paying attention to others, right? What's the kind of interpersonal attention that people are paying to one another on campus? Just something to think about. So remember, academics are important, but there's a lot more to college than academics. It's about who you meet. It's about the relationships that you develop. It's about all the experiences outside of academics, including just co-curricular and extracurricular activities that are often shape your life every bit as much as the classes you take. I think students' expectations and attitude make an enormous difference. You can go to the finest, most prestigious, most selective institution in the country and get a really third-rate education if you're not invested in it, if you're actually just sort of sleepwalking through your college experience, not applying yourself, not taking advantage of opportunities. Conversely, right, you can go to an institution that's not on the top 10 list of anybody, right, and get a fabulous education if you apply yourself and take advantage of all the opportunities that are there. So it really has a lot to do with how much you invest. It's sort of a cliche, but what you get out of college will be pretty proportional to what you put into it. You can always leave or transfer. I've known many students who've done this over the years. It's often a good move. It means that they're taking time away, or they've decided that they need to be in a different environment, maybe closer to home. Maybe they've discovered that they're really passionate about something that school just doesn't offer much of. It could be for any number of reasons, and it's worth considering. You're not married to this school forever. Many students think about a gap year. My sons both did gap years after high school before they started college. It was a great experience for them. They entered college not only a year older, but having traveled and been away from home for a full year. It was a wonderful experience, and it's certainly something worth considering. And remember, you're not buying a commodity, you're buying a set of experiences and relationships, and keep that foremost in mind. Okay. This is what people mean when they talk about fit. And this is just a way of, this is what I think pretty much every college counselor will say to students. It's
actually, can I pause you for just a second, Louis?
Oh, please do.
This is amazing. I have like a whole bunch of notes and a whole bunch of things like, oh yeah, that happened to me. That happened to my kid.
Yeah.
Wish I had known that. I love the pretend to get lost. But I wanted, that's just a huge amount of information. And again, a lot of it is things I hadn't thought about. I just wanted to give people a quick opportunity. If you have any questions,
Sure.
just pop them in the chat. Do that now. Anything that's particularly jumping out at you. And if you don't, then, but nothing shows up in 30 seconds or so, we'll just continue.
All right.
But yeah, I was going to be an econ major because my sister was a banker and had a really nice car. And so I was going to be a banker, and to be a banker, you go to Williams College and major in economics. And after 2 semesters, it hit me that they hadn't mentioned people anymore. Like, wow, there are no people, like a human being has not like happened in these like phenomenal classes, absolutely fascinating. But my English and history classes were about people, and it hit me that that's what I wanted to spend my time on.
There you go.
And
there you go.
So okay, so no questions so far. I did put in a note that we'll share resources. You can go to the handout button and download things. The slideshow is not on there, and there may be 1 or 2 other things. I'll make sure that tonight or tomorrow we get an email with all of that out, but I want to make sure that people knew that.
Great.
Okay.
Great.
Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Barak. Fit, right? Here are some of the things that I encourage students to ask in no particular order, right? And these are just self-reflective questions, right? Because in fact, different institutions have different cultures. Being at Stanford, which of course is a very prestigious institution with a very low acceptance rate, I think it's still in the neighborhood of about 4% or so, right? If you get in, you feel like you've won the lottery. How could you not go there, right? And yet, if you're not a very competitive student, you may discover that it's a little overwhelming to be in an institution like Stanford. It may not match your own needs in terms of the way you learn and the kind of environment you want to be in. Or to put it another way, would you rather go to Stanford and, let's say, hypothetically, be in the bottom third of your class, or go to another school where you could be in the top third of your class, right? Which would be better for you, right? These are questions you want to think about, right? And that's about fit. Here's another just large takeaway that I think encapsulates much of what I've been trying to say. Many people I've noticed, especially I'm in the Bay Area, this is especially true here in Silicon Valley, but I think it's true more generally, look at college, as I said earlier, as a kind of a ticket to a destination, right? It's a career, it's a particular job, maybe even a particular company that you've got your sights on. This is what I want to be. And so, I'm going to be a banker, right? So my college education is to get that degree that's going to get me a job as a banker, right? And that's to look at your college, as I say to students, as in a very instrumental way, as a kind of a plane ticket. It's analogous to saying, I need to get to Pittsburgh. I'm going to buy myself a plane ticket to Pittsburgh. And lo and behold, when I get to Pittsburgh, my plane ticket is used up. It is done. I can't use it again. I throw it away because it got me where I wanted to go, and that's all it could do for me. By contrast, think about a passport. A passport can take you to any destination. It's usable for years and years. In fact, when it expires, you can renew it. And actually, many people, when their old passport expires, they don't throw it away, actually, like a plane ticket that's used up. They stick it in a drawer somewhere because they imagine that someday they're going to pull it out and they're going to look at the stamps that are in that passport and remember all the great journeys they took. And a passport is a personal document. It has your photo in it, right? And a lot of other personal information, like your birth date and a variety of things, right, that a plane ticket doesn't have. A passport is a very different kind of document. And if you look at your education as a passport instead of a plane ticket, it'll take you to destinations you've never thought about, never even imagined you'd want to go to. It'll take you to jobs that may not even exist yet, because you will have used it in a way that enables you to gain the skills the underlying skills that you'll use no matter where you go and no matter what you do. That's to get the most value out of all that money. You want to be thinking about your college experience as a passport, not just a plane ticket. Okay? Not to say that there's anything wrong with getting a job. Needless to say, we all want students who get out of college to get jobs, right? That's just not the only thing we want. Right? So you've been accepted, and actually now the hard part begins. And I realize this may be sort of counterintuitive for many of you, because getting into college is so much the focus for so many young people that it's hard to imagine like what happens on the other side of that. It's like this huge horizon that you're focused on. College is actually quite hard in a whole range of ways. And contrary to people's expectations, it is not really just a continuation of high school for a whole range of reasons, right? It's no longer enough to just absorb the information that other people tell you and spit it back accurately, which in most cases, in most high schools, generalizing here, is enough to get you an A. In college, it's mostly not enough to get you an A. The pace is going to be faster. You're going to be doing more of your learning outside of class. The study strategies that you've used that have worked for you in the past may not continue to work for you in a new setting like college. And professors are going to expect you to do all sorts of critical thinking, higher level thinking that involve analyzing and synthesizing and comparing and evaluating and all sorts of things that you may never have had a lot of experience doing. And unfortunately, probably in high school, they didn't prepare you to do much of that unless you went to a very, very rigorous high school. And in college, most faculty will not actually sit you down and explain exactly really how you do these things. They're just going to sort of throw you in the deep end and expect that you figure out how to swim, to put it bluntly. Right? So, and besides all of that, right, that's just the academic side. Right? College can be overwhelming because it's a new environment in a whole range of ways, because you have many, many more choices than you have in high school, because there are all sorts of new rules. It's a much more complicated institution, so there are many, many more rules and regulations to navigate about registration and grading and a whole slew of things. Social environment can be different. There's maybe more diversity, maybe more drinking or drug use. Dating scene in college can be very different than it was in high school. For most students, going to college means living away from home for the first time and renegotiating their relationship with their parents, figuring out how to juggle all of these different dimensions of your life, which again, many high school students have been doing. And yet in college, you'll be doing it in a whole new setting and without your parents right there to kind of give you guidance and support. Building new relationships, finding new people. You get off to college after being in a high school where you pretty much knew tons of people and tons of people knew you. All of a sudden, you may not know anyone on day one, and you have to begin to find people that you relate to. And of course, establishing a new identity, because you're a different person. You're growing up, you're becoming an adult in a whole new way. Help is available. There are obviously all of these resources that are available for college students on virtually every campus, right? Health services, academic advising, tutoring and support, career services, religious and community centers, and faculty, and sometimes others as well who are support people, right? The problem is with all of those resources, it's not always as easy as it looks. And that's because offices are sometimes understaffed, especially when colleges are under financial constraints. Services are not necessarily well coordinated. So the professional that you talk to in this office over here won't necessarily know that you talked to somebody over there, and certainly won't know what you told them, because those systems typically are not integrated, right? And that's partly to protect you, because some information, like your health information, is confidential. And the conversations that you have with your professors are not shared with anyone else, right? So, for all of these reasons, it may not be as easy to get the help that you need as you imagine. Sometimes, especially in large institutions, it can be very complicated to figure out who does what and how to get what you need. They can be impersonal institutions. You can feel like just a number, right? In a very, very large institution with 10 or maybe 20,000 or more undergraduates. Institutional policies can often be confusing and frustrating, especially if you run into one of them unknowingly. Like you discover all of a sudden you imagined you could do something and now you can't, and it screws up your schedule or your plan in some way. Staff training can vary widely. How well trained the staff are in any given office on campus is not a given. Staff turnover can be a very significant factor. Again, I can tell you from my time at Stanford, I ran an office of about 40 people, and every year, 3, 4, 5 of them or more moved on to other opportunities, and we were hiring new people. It was not at all uncommon, and that was not just unique to my office. So just to know, the people that you're talking to may not have been at the institution even as long as you have been, right? If they're very new. So that can have an impact on their ability to help you. Now, how to decide with all of that information and all of that background and context, how on earth, right, am I going to go about deciding among the thousands of institutions just in this country alone that offer 4-year bachelor's degrees? So the first thing I encourage you to realize is there really is no perfect decision, right? If you imagine that you're aiming to find the perfect match or the perfect fit, you're probably setting yourself up for a lot of anxiety and probably some disappointment. It's just not perfect, right? It's also a decision that you're going to probably have to make without all the information you would want. You could spend years collecting all the information about all the campuses that you're interested in and still not feel as though you really had all the information you needed, right? So you've got to get yourself into a place where you're comfortable kind of leaping before you have all the information that you might want. And remember, mostly the student's success is going to depend on them more than on the school, right? That is to say, if you really invest yourself and you really take advantage of opportunities and support services, you are likely to do well and you are likely to be happy there, right? No matter which school you choose. And in fact, most students do say that they're basically happy where they are. And this is an important fact that most people don't consider when they're looking at their decision. So again, that NESI survey that I referred to earlier, among the questions they ask students is, how do they feel about their overall educational experience? Look at those statistics. This is, by the way, from the 2024 survey, right? Upwards, about really 80% of students feel like their overall educational experience was excellent or good. And when asked if they would choose the same school again, actually more than 80% of them say they definitely or probably would choose the same school again. These are very high rates of satisfaction among students who have they have no reason to lie about this, right? It doesn't give them anything if they say they like the school better. The school isn't going to know who they were when they fill out this survey anonymously, right? So this is a pretty accurate read of how students feel about college. So if you think about that from the perspective of a person now choosing a college, right? Consider that no matter where you go, you may be agonizing about it, but the fact of the matter is wherever you go, it's highly likely statistically that you're going to be happy there because most students are. So maybe that turns down the temperature a bit on the anxiety. So here's some things about how to maintain perspective. The first one, I think, is get over prestige. I say this as somebody who spent 6 years at Stanford, among the most prestigious institutions in the country, right? I use this. I confess I have not read this Wall Street Journal article, but I came across a reference to it, right? This obsession that we need to start working at getting our kids into Harvard or Yale or Stanford or wherever from the time they're, way like not hardly out of grade school. Right? I think this is obsessive and actually harmful to students' mental health. Right? It suggests that the only way to be successful in life actually is to get into Harvard or one of these other schools, and that's just not true. There's a long list of people that I keep who have been very successful, whose names you would know, who are stars of television and film and politicians and business executives and all sorts of people who've done extremely well in life who didn't go to any of these top prestigious schools, right? So just keep that in mind. Here are some other ways to maintain perspective. Right? It's very, very tempting to compare yourself to other students. Oh my goodness, this student is applying to 20 schools. I'm only applying to 10 or 12. Like, what am I doing? Maybe I should be doing something different. Whatever. This student got waitlisted at 4 places and got into 6 places and whatever. Like, doesn't matter. All you need is one. So all of that comparing is really often counterproductive. Again, you don't need to attend an elite school to be successful. There's lots of data about that. Focus on the happiness of current students and alumni. That is to say, the thing that you really want is to go to a place that students who are there feel supported, feel like they're getting a good education, feel like the campus climate is one that's open and engaging and friendly. They want to be in a place where they feel at home, right? That matters a whole lot more to your experience in college than like what was their acceptance rate or how do they rank on US News and World Reports, right? That's not going to help you feel better when you're there. Practice good self-care, right? In the midst of this very intense and potentially anxiety-producing process, right? Do the things that you know that you need to do to take good care of yourself, because it is going to be emotionally stressful. There's just no way around that. And most likely remember that you're going to be fine, or if you're a parent, your children are very likely to be fine and to do well. Overwhelmingly, that's the case. So here are a few things you can do to help your student prepare. Right? And these I'm not going to dwell on, but I think they're worth paying attention to, because I was a parent of 2 students. They're now long out of college, but I can tell you that it is a challenging time. Students will be going through challenges of their own. As a parent, you're going to want to help them and support them. Figuring out how to do that is really not always obvious, right? So reinforcing them, encouraging them to take initiative and responsibility, right? Don't go in and solve their problems for them. Encourage them to go and solve them for themselves. Recognize that struggle and failure is actually very common, and it is part of the college experience for everybody. Nobody succeeds at everything all the time. Right? None of us do. Right? So if you normalize that when your child calls and says, I'm devastated, I got a C on this paper, I'm failing this class, I'm blah blah, right? It's not going to be an uncommon experience. Right? And normalize that. Encourage them to seek help. There are resources on campus for students. They need to take advantage of them. It's actually part of what you're paying for. You should really be encouraging them to use them. Foster critical thinking and self-reflection. You can be doing this even before your kids get to college, right? When they say something or repeat something that they heard on social media or that some friend said or whatever that sounds kind of off the wall to you, you might just ask them to say, that's interesting. Like, what kind of evidence is there for that? Like, have you actually done any research to find out whether that's true? Right? That's just a very subtle way of saying to them, in college, it's going to matter if they have evidence to support the opinions that they throw around. Invite them to set their own goals, right? This is a very, very important part of them finding their own purpose and their own sense of direction in life, right? You have goals for them. We all have goals and aspirations for our children. And at some point, we need to recognize that their goals for themselves may not align with our goals for them. And after all, it is their life, and they're going to have to live it. Whether you're paying for their education or not, it is ultimately their education, and it's them that is being shaped by this education. And you want to let that process happen. Help them adjust their expectations. They could have been the top student in their school in high school, and they are not necessarily going to be the top student in their class in college. Get them used to that idea. It's not a failure if that's the case. Resist the urge to be what we call helicopter or snowplow parents. Obviously, much has been said about this. I don't need to say more. And again, connecting with campus resources. Here's a copy of my book. My publisher insists that I put this up in every presentation I do. A book called Thinking Critically in College, which is a book I wrote a couple of years ago now that really walks students through the kind of critical thinking that college courses require and how to do it. And in that sense, it's really quite unlike other college success books, which give you a lot of good information and beneficial advice, like, get enough sleep and get along with your roommate and learn how to manage your time well and take good notes and a variety of things. All of that is obvious. The stuff that isn't so obvious is really how to do the thinking that your professors are asking you to do. And this book may be useful to you in that regard. And finally, just last slide here. I do work individually with college students. I do not do admissions work, but I do work with students in college to help them navigate all the challenges and take advantage of all the opportunities that college will afford them. So with that, I am done. I am open for questions. I'm going to quit sharing and We're back to just, yeah, is that right? Yes. Okay.
There we go. Hi, great. Thank you. Thank you. That was great. So people you can put questions in the chat, but you can also raise your hand and I can let you use your mic, your video if you want to have questions for Lewis. I know one thing that kind of a theme, it's kind of where I started the adventure of it all. It's not like Lewis and Clark trying to see how you get to the Pacific. Like it's not, we're not talking about things no one has ever done. Like this year, what some like 1.8 million students or however many students applied to college and are going to college. Some parent, I can see the list of people here. I know there are some of the, some consultants and counselors, some parents who I know have gone through the process and are going through it again. A couple, I believe, have not gone through it. And what I often tell people is just step by step. Just step by step, you will get there. Your student will get there. And take a great big breath. Absolutely. And when things are getting over, sort of step away. Now, if it is October 31st and their essay isn't done, that's a different story. I've been there with my students and never enjoy that. Yeah. But really, this is like, you got this. It's a step by step.
Yeah. Happy to take questions if you have anyone.
Yes. So you can either put it in the chat. You can, next to there are a bunch of emojis, the smile, the celebrate, the kind of this hand up. Then there are the three dots. If you do that, you can also raise your hand and you can choose your hand. So Lena, what is the best way? Hi, Lena. What is the best way to figure out the college's mode of teaching, seminars, quarters, types of grades, etc., and if it would match your kids' way of thinking? I love that.
It's a great question. It's a great question. So the first thing to realize is that colleges as a whole, right, are made up of all these individual faculty who are teaching their courses, right? And each one of them has a lot of latitude about how they do that, right? That's just in the nature of it. It's very rare. There are certain courses where there are certain techniques or certain modes of teaching that are adopted by like a whole crew of people because they teach so many sections of that course to so many students. They have to do it uniformly to be able to make sure that they're delivering the same experience to all the students who are taking the same course with the same number, right? But by and large, overwhelmingly, the experience that you have among teachers in college will be very diverse, just as the experience that your students have had in high school is likely very diverse. Right? Different teachers have different styles of teaching. They have different levels of expectation. They have different policies about work that comes in late and a whole range of things. Right? So all of that, just to say, you're not going to get like an overall, like what kind of teaching do the faculty at this place do? What you will be able to ask, and this is what I was pointing to earlier, right? If there are seminars, particularly small seminars, 15 at most, 18, for first-year students, and they're required, and students then really have an opportunity early in their career to have close contact with the faculty member and with a small group of their fellow students, those experiences tend to be very powerful and great initiations into college life and college learning. And if a school does that, that's a good sign that they're actually thinking clearly about the kind of educational experience that students need. Quarters versus semesters, that you can easily find out simply by looking at the university's website and looking at their calendar, right, which will be publicly available. And you can always find that out. Right? I hope that answered your question, Lena. If there's something I missed there, please let me know.
Yeah, I was thinking in looking at it of Colorado College. Right. Which is, or Northeastern in Boston, and Colorado College. People who don't know, they have block classes, and I think it's 3 weeks or something, and you just take one course, and you are all in, and which makes it really amazing because students can, I have a student who went there, and he said, yeah, they loaded us. Professor got a school van and took the 9 of us, and we went digging for dinosaur bones in Utah or something like that for 3 weeks, which you cannot do
Right.
like, in other places.
Right.
And then Northeastern, where it has students do co-ops, and you go and you work in a business or a nonprofit or a government agency is embedded in. And so that's kind of what I was hearing a little bit
Yeah.
in her question.
Right.
And it's doing that research.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that real, sense of like, well, imagining what that would be like.
Right.
And talking with students who go there and getting that sense.
And again, getting the information from alumni who've been through the experience and have the benefit of some perspective. Like the students are in the middle of it, right? Might find it challenging, right, in some regards. And then they might look back on it a year or two after graduation and have a very different evaluation of how valuable that experience was, right? So you want to get the information not just from current students, but from former students. Cyrus, I see your question is about AI and how AI is affecting college experience. This is a big question. I confess I am not an expert on AI, and I am not teaching any longer. In that regard, I'm actually fortunate that I'm not teaching any longer because these are not problems that I'm currently dealing with. There's no question. I read about this in the higher education news all the time. People are very much in the midst of trying to figure out how to take advantage of AI, how to constrain the ways in which students can use it to do the work for them and sort of sidestep, right, the hard intellectual work that we really ask them to do and want them to do. Right. These are very much works in progress. I don't think anybody's got this figured out yet, as far as I can tell. Everybody's trying to learn from one another, but it is very much top of mind for college administrators and faculty. So that's as much as I can say. I'm not in the middle of it anymore, and what I know is that it's an ongoing process of people as the technology gets better, people trying to figure out what to do with it and how to make the best use of it.
Yeah, and I can echo that. I went to some seminars, workshops at the NACAC conference in California last year, dealing with that, and in the consensus seemed to be, we'll see, and seeing a lot of positive potential, and then what are the dangers and the downsides?
It is still very early. I mean, the reality is this is very new technology for most of us. Yeah. And so I think it's just, I mean, anybody who tells you they know exactly how it's going to be 5 or 10 or 20 years from now, I think it's a guess.
And I can give you a huge red flag warning about like essays. That's a huge question. Some of the workshops said, here's how to put an essay into an AI, ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, and get feedback. I've put the identical essay into ChatGPT with the same question. This is a college essay. What do you think? What's feedback? And in the first time it said, this is fabulous, wonderful, we love it. And the second, same essay, same prompt. Well, this is not very effective, but you could make it work if. And every time I've done that, it's just like, like, don't buy it. And actually, there's a handout. You can go into that handouts tab and download all the handouts. One of them is how to read any college essay like a pro. That one's for me. Everything else is from Lewis. And that'll do a much better job than AI. But certainly don't write it with AI.
Yeah, definitely don't do that.
Okay, so another question.
L or Ellie? I don't know. Can you change majors? It seems ridiculous to have applicants declare majors. Yes, in a certain way, I believe it is sort of ridiculous to have applicants declare majors, but I can tell you why I think some colleges like this. Once you declare,
and then there's some more. Yeah, did you see the more context?
Generally, yeah, it does vary by school. In general, schools accept people who change majors. I think it's highly, highly unusual to say, what are they going to do? They're going to kick you out now because you just say you've discovered a new interest, or, it doesn't make much sense educationally. The reason that colleges sometimes want students to either declare a major or give the college some sense of a list of their top most interesting, like here's a list of all the things you can major in at our school. Like which 3 or 4 of them do you think you might be most interested in? The reason that colleges want to do that is because they don't want to admit a class of all students who all want to be economics majors, or who all want to be music majors, or who all, right? They want to have a diverse class. And so to some degree, the only way they can do that, other than reading all of the students' materials and trying to discern what's the student likely, what path are they likely to pursue in college, this is one way that they can begin to get a bit of a sense of what's the range of interest here in our applicant pool, right? But by and large, at Carleton and at many other schools, students don't formally declare their major till the end of their sophomore year, literally halfway through their career. That's not uncommon at liberal arts colleges. Other schools, you can declare your major at any time. But the notion of, again, I have a whole other presentation that I give about majors, but I would just say, again, bottom line, it doesn't matter much what you major in. What matters is how well you do and how excited you are about it. And that is going to take you further ultimately in life than worrying about, am I majoring in the thing that some employer out there is going to want, right? But colleges are asking applicants to do it, right? Yeah. Sometimes. Right?
So from what I've seen, and I mean, people like, Cyrus and some others here who are, full college consultants and have a broader perspective. I just focus on essays. Some of it, they are asking for, what are you thinking of majoring in? Partly because the English department said, hey, we got a whole bunch of English majors who just graduated. Can you go find us some English majors? And the math department or the engineering department says, whoa, you know what? We just had a whole bunch of students transfer in, the English majors just turned into econ majors or whatever last year.
Right.
Let's slow it down for a year or two. So some of it is managing the capacity of the individual departments. Right. Sometimes my sense, again, this is sometimes it's related to the essays and the supplementals. They want to get a sense of how a student's mind works, right. Things like that. I don't know many. Now, I imagine that there are schools, and this was a question I had for you, Louis, and we are going to finish up at 6:01. I have such a liberal arts background. You were in mostly liberal arts and then huge research. And then there are students who go for very, very, veterinary science bachelor's degree, which I think the learning and one of my college friends became a veterinarian. She now trains medical doctors, which I can't get my head around. Right. But there's that whole range. And yeah, if you're in a very specific program and applying to that specific program, they probably want to know that you're probably going to stick with it.
Absolutely.
Direct admit to engineering or business school at University of Washington is very, very hard. Right. And when students say, I'm applying direct admit to the business school, I say, great, tell me about your businesses. Yeah. And they look at me and say, what are you talking about? I've never had a business. I don't do anything with business. I just think it's a good idea. It's like, yeah, you're not getting into the business school at UW.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I would say is that there are schools, Carleton was not one of these, but there are schools where you actually have to apply to become a major in a particular field. Yep. Sometimes that's just a gatekeeping function, because if they didn't do that, they would be inundated with too many students who all wanted to be in the same major, and they simply don't have enough faculty to teach enough courses to accommodate all of those students. They have to find some way of filtering out, right, the students who are really good at this and really committed to it, and the students who may be dabbling in it. Right. Yeah, so great. That's just another factor that some colleges have adopted as a way to
so I just want to acknowledge it's 6:03. Yep. I'm going to we can stick around, and if people still have questions, we can do that. But I thank you, Louis. I learned a lot. One of my metrics is how many people stick around until the very, very end. And as far as I can tell, one person just dropped off, but people really stayed. So thank you. I so appreciate it. And there will be, I think it's next week, we're doing your webinar for students heading into college, like the seniors, they've graduated, and let's get you thinking differently. And I know my girlfriend's kids have gone through that. One's a graduate, one's going to be a senior. Boy, that would have been really helpful for them.
Yep, absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. So, by all means, look forward to seeing you next week. And thank you again, Barack, for hosting this, and thank you all for being here.
You're welcome, and you're welcome to everybody. Now I'll stop the recording.